Welcome back to my channel. I continue through with the sword family, 8 of Swords. The 8 of Swords shows a woman standing bound and blindfolded with the 8 of Swords surrounding her. And this woman is dressed in an orange, reddish dress with very pale brown shoes. So the colour of her dress suggests enthusiasm, power, action, and optimism. Yet she looks far from empowered and optimistic and shows little actions because she has bindings on her that restrict her. Her shoes show her fully aware of her predicament, with the brown, earthy element stuck within watery emotions. And in some versions of this card, her shoes and undergarments are also slightly orange, symbolizing a lack of physical and mental energy. Her clothes reflect what she hopes for herself, yet feels unable to attain. And yet, she is psychologically trapped by her own restricting beliefs. The fabric that's used to bind her is loose, so she can remove it. But it matches the dark grey of her undergarment, yet like the couple in the Devil's card, she is staying firmly fixed in that place, rather than setting herself free. She's bound by a deep fear of moving out of her current situation, and so the blindfold is creating fear of the unknown, and issues are exaggerated in her mind. It's covering her third eye, and that's leaving her blind even without her intuition. No intuition, she can't see, and she cannot hear. So her fears will be heightened. Yet the ties that are around her body could so easily be removed. She could also walk away from this situation, as her legs are not bound, but there's a swamp in front of her, and without sight, she fears falling and making things worse. This is leaving her mind tied up in knots. Now, the blindfold may stop the truth from being seen, and the way that's out of this 8 of Swords, but it feeds her limiting self-belief about being powerless. They're grey and is bringing deep thought as she ties herself up in her own problems. So someone or something has bound this lady mentally, remember it's swords. So it's allowing a problem to take authority into her mind and tying her to her situation. She feels perplexed, helpless, inadequate, and unable to make any changes. If we look, we can see behind her the tide has gone out, leaving her standing in rivulets of remaining seawater, mud, sand, all bogged down with static emotions. She could drown in her own feelings, where the tide returned and her thoughts trap her in this place. The muddy sand represents her lack of footing and stirs up shallow emotions. And this prompts fear and creates a cycle of negative emotions, followed by disempowering thoughts. The ebbing current of the tide shows the bulk of the emotions. Remember, water represents our emotion. And there's more of a niggling fear of the what ifs and the maybes as she's trying to avoid her problems. It's created a panicked hurdle within her life. Algae has started to form, leaving her shallow waters prone to stagnation, as if she's actually waiting for someone to come and save her. Behind her, if we look, stands a castle representing safety, comfort, success, but she's got her back to it, and she's not seeing it, and she's not facing towards him. Now that castle is high on the rocks, so she may perceive the journey back as too complicated and hopeless. This is a card that relates back to the 2 of Swords. And if we think of that card where we have Our Lady with her arms bolt upright, holding two swords up, and the strength to do that, and the determination that at that point, this person could have dealt with things. The Eight of Swords comes about when we don't deal with matters at the Two of Swords. It's the progression from that particular point, that indecisiveness, that kind of all tied up in knots, not knowing which way to go, getting yourself into a point where you can't call a truce with yourself, you can't do anything. Mentally is the swords, and this is where our figure is showing that her inner doubt can tell it's impossible and she won't be able to make it. So she's separated from her place of safety. She's nowhere near the castle. She's isolated herself and she's unable to see beyond her current situation and beliefs. And that looks as if she's worried, as if, what am I stepping into here? It could be worse. It could be swampy. It could actually be quicksand. It could be that I could go straight down and I don't know how deep it'll be. And what's in that? What's that stagnation? But she could easily just step back and very carefully try and free herself using the blade of the sword to set herself free. So the sword is forming prison for her, and thoughts are hemming her in and trapping her or stopping her from looking to where she would rather be. This represents limiting beliefs, leaving her psychologically confined, powerless, stuck, unable to challenge her own belief. And the swords are planted in a set of 1 at the front, then 2 on the left side, and then we've got 5 on, as we look at it, the right side. She's standing between the failure of the 5 of swords. Remember the bullies, feeling that we are being excluded, and the avoidance of 2, like I mentioned, and with the reality and the truth of the Ace of Swords, which is right in front of her, that she's totally ignoring. Let's go back into the fact that she's a victim. She's grounded in her fears, which will prevent change and movement. And her fears are what's causing her to feel that she's in jail. So they're the greatest jailers, her own fear. And that's keeping her confined in a prison of her own making. So sometimes if you watch on Tuesday when we do pairs and I show you my method, we'll be looking at what does this card mean when we fuse it with a major arcana card, and 22 different meanings for this one particular card. Therefore, we are in a position to learn more about what that card actually means and how to read it. So don't miss Tarot Tuesday Twists. And if you don't know anything about me, my name is AnneMarie. I'm Tarot with AnneMarie, and I teach courses, and I have been teaching people tarot for too many decades to mention. And yeah, I have taught tarot in a very different light. I have been empowering people on their own spiritual entrepreneur path to be the person they want to be, not to liken yourself to anyone else, not to actually do things in a certain way, but I teach you a system. With that system, it's up to you. Once you know that system, you know how to read tarot, and not just here I have the hermit or anything like that, and it just means you're alone. What does that tell you? You need to know so much more. The background of this is really interesting because at times it will appeal to you intuitively, logically, and if you actually use the pair method, which is just a tiny piece of the method that I use to teach you how to read tarot like a professional, and that's all I teach. It's up to you what you want to do, but it's aimed at that level. because I had a platform of tarot readers, psychics, and I was able to empower them to have their own career, do their own thing, work for somebody, work for themselves, sorry, whatever they wish to do. Why? Because they have the skill and the complete foundation of how to do a professional reading for somebody that's asking for a certain period of time, maybe half an hour, whatever. And they were able to deliver that by using a system. You've got to have a system if you want to be a professional. Yes, your intuition will come into it, but there's so much more to it than just actually thinking, I'm going to get a customer and they're going to love what I do. This is the intermediate course, and this is my signature course, part 1. And this is where you learn an extended Celtic cross with a very different way. It's not what you would have seen before, but you'd be familiar with it if you've looked at the Celtic cross. So this is the one that you're looking for. If you're not sure of your cards, there's tons more on there. Different courses, the swords, the wands, the court cards, all separated, mini courses. Go and do it however you wish. And this is where you'll find out. On my website, tarotwithanemarie.com. There on the top, after home, second one along, that's the courses. All right? This woman in this card is trapped by her mental processes and she's inactive now. So, intellectually, because swords is how the mind is working and our communication, and intellectually, she is stuck, even though she could move if she chooses to. So the swords do not fence her in. You can see that. So she could lead them through the opening in the front of her, or simply pull them up out of the sand. It shows a time when perhaps our figure believed her own negativity and allowed others or her own beliefs and narrow opinions to control the world in which she lives in her mind. Now, if this comes up for you, it might make you feel like you're frozen in place and powerless too. Scared to make any moves. We've all been trapped because the mind is telling us everything's going to fail. But the magic of this card often comes from the form of outside help and being helped by others. So all is not lost. Why? Because we can be inspired by something that someone has said to us. And the number 8 represents change, challenge, honesty, and determination. So we can feel trapped, powerless, unable to make changes, and even victimized. And that can make us further disempower ourselves. We see no way out of a situation as we see it, and we listen to our fears. That's when we're imprisoned by them. When this card comes up, it's a time to ask for help and take it if it's offered, because the insights from another person can help you move away from your own self-imposed limitations. So it's about letting go of our restraining fears that stop us being happy and moving forwards. The 8 of Swords brings a time when you will feel trapped and unable to move from your difficult circumstances. And that can make us feel that we are restricting all of the possible incoming opportunities. Because what we're saying is, no, gone. And the situation exists because you tell yourself it does, which leaves us having a problem. And regardless of how many big monsters and outside forces and fears and expectations and worries that keep you stuck, you will be able to make decisions. It's only the fear of failure, because all you can actually see is problems and things that are actually in your way or holding you back. Yet, if you look, there is a pathway. You could cut yourself free by stepping back and very gently feeling away with the sword, the blade of it, to cut those ties, release the hands, take off the blindfold, and not step into the swamp. So when you get this card, it's not a time to pass blame because, as I said earlier, we've caused the problem ourselves by embedding ourselves into negative thinking, usually while trying to avoid an emotional situation and not tackling the outdated beliefs that we have. This is a difficult card because it shows a need for personal honesty and a realization that you are the roadblock, that you're looking for the answer. You're the one that's standing in your own way. And this card represents us being our own worst enemies, trapped in a situation that's destroying your confidence, your self-esteem, your happiness. So quite often when this card comes up, you will need help from another for that perspective so that you can see that things can be changed and they are better than you think. It's about taking a break from your situation so you can focus on what's holding you back. And remember, this is a build-up from the Two of Swords. So when that comes up and you're sitting on the fence of indecisiveness, you really need to not stay there for too long. Otherwise, it becomes like this, and you're imprisoned in your own self-limiting beliefs and your deep fears. Self-imposed boundaries can be broken, but that means letting go of those limiting beliefs. Often we can see ourselves as being a victim, or we're numb and we feel that we've got nothing more left. And so, a defeatist. And we feel persecuted and imprisoned by our own issues. Another aspect of this card is if we look at what's around us, we are in a position to say it's entrapment, restrictions, powerless. Those things keep us in confinement, keep us in bind, we're fenced in, restrictions, stagnation, like the swamp, dilemmas. We turn everything into a crisis. But really, will it matter in 100 years? If you say that to yourself, it's just today and tomorrow and this, then you know the answer, but something has to change. And if you always do the same, you'll always get the same. So this is about confusion, and it's definitely someone that's not focused. When we've got illusions and delusions around us, we are not perceptive. And so we feel incarcerated or in prison or enslaved. And I'm trapped, unable to face any of my problems. Can't see a way out. No options. Our hands are tied. We're blocked in a corner. Self-sabotage really is what happens here, which makes us feel that we're helpless, that we're a victim, that we are being disempowered, that we are in a place of persecution. So those negative thoughts and self-imposed restriction form that victim mentality, because our own self-limiting beliefs are our biggest inner critic. And so we need to release negative thoughts, open to new perspectives. Often when this card comes up, it's a real need to gain perspective from someone else and to ground yourself. Ground yourself just as in go for a walk, be out in the fresh air. One of the greatest places you could go, if you're lucky enough to live near a beach, is walk on the beach, because you've got it all done. Why? You've got the sun, which is fire, for action. You've got the air. It's there, it's fresh. And that will help clear your blockages. And you've also got the groundedness of the sand, and that represents being grounded, earthed. And you've also got the water, which is allowing your emotions to, you have to honor them. You have to honor how you're feeling. But like the tide, they come in and go out. When we look at this card, we see a woman that's bound and blindfolded. And those 8 swords that are surrounding her feel like they're trapping her in place. And they're symbolic of limiting thoughts and beliefs and the mindset that prevents her from moving on. If she removed that blindfold, she'd quickly realise that she can escape. And she can get out of this predicament by letting go of her own limiting beliefs. And then she's going to be able to empower herself with a new mindset. That water that's pulled at her feet, and I mentioned being in the sea. When we're around water, it sparks our intuition. And so that pulled water at her feet suggests that her intuition might be able to see what her eyes can't. So that's the significance of that water. And the 8 of Swords reveals that your circumstances trap and restrict you. You will believe your options are totally limited and that you need a clear way out of this situation. It might be that unfulfilling job, an abusive relationship, a significant amount of debt, or a situation that's way out of alignment of your inner being. And so that's where you feel trapped between a rock and a hard place, as the expression goes, and no resolution available. However, look, we can escape if we want to. It's fear that traps us. And we just need to remove that blindfold. And we can do that by using the sword to cut the mind, get rid of all of that. Everything is being held back mentally. So it's mentally, there's nothing physical about this. I appreciate it's maybe a very real situation. When this comes up in a reading, there is a warning that your beliefs are no longer serving you well. And you might be overthinking things, creating negative patterns. And you're limiting yourself by only considering the worst case scenario. You get stuck in it. And more problems, more this, more that. And the more we think about the situation, the more we feel stuck and without any options. So it's really a kind of saying, go outside, get out of your head, and let all those thoughts and beliefs that's holding you back wash away, roll away. That's a great question. Why is that castle so big in the card? It's because it really is about the fact she's got that security behind her. And it's far bigger than her. And it grounds her. It's her domestic arrangements. It's home. It's there for a reason. And it's what she's built. If you look, it's on a cliff or side of a hill. And that represents that that's what's more important. It's groundedness. We wouldn't have a building in there. We wouldn't, if it was dire, we'd just have water everywhere and her kind of in it. But that castle represents her safety, her domestic arrangements, home, everything that she's forgetting about, the safety. When we've got a home, we've got a place that we can actually rest our head and hopefully have something to eat. And hopefully our hygiene, our personal hygiene is we can take care of it. We can wash, we can bathe, we can shower. But it represents the fact that's what she's forgetting about. All the great things, just obsessed on this one particular thing. And even in castle, even if she's got debt, she could sell it or she could rent it out. If it's an abusive relationship that's there, leave that security behind. But I don't think it is, because as you mentioned, why is it so big? It's big in her world. It's important to her. But if she's thinking there's an abusive relationship now, I'm just saying it's one of the things that we talked about. It doesn't mean it is. It's possibility of several scenarios. But if it was that, she could still turn around and say, you know what? My personal mental freedom is far better in that castle if that's where there is something that is not making her feel happy or she feels trapped, if it was that. And we'd only know that by the major card. And we'd only know that by its position. And just those two cards, we would need to look at the surrounding cards in the spread. But yes, it's representing her security and what she has. It's got a roof on it, a red roof. So red's representing passion, energy, drive, even her dress. She's not powerless. Unfortunately, this is the mindset, forgetting everything and dwelling on something that you can control it. Once you actually make a decision, not making a decision, that's why I say to you, it's moved on from the Two of Swords. Podcasts, we've got podcasts now, Learn Tarot podcast. And this is what it looks like. So there's the playlist in Learn Tarot, which is Thursday nights, and we are in that session now. This will be added to the whole podcast list. Our playlists, of course, on my channel, and you can find my channel here. There I am. You can find everything you're looking for. So I've worked very hard at trying to get a library together for you so that you can find all of your cards in depth, one by one, just in the way that we're doing them. And we've still got a lot to go, a lot of minor cards. We are getting through them. We've done the 22 major, and we are now at card 8 out of the Swords. I hope you like that, and I'll be showing you the other podcast and playlist, so you should be able to find that any time. These tutorials are here to give you that support, particularly if you're doing the courses, being able to talk to community. But frankly, it's been in the right community, isn't it, that you've just grown as a reader. That's it. Wanting it in life as a profession, a paid profession. And that is where I come in. If you change your thoughts, you'll change your reality. And the only way to do that is to actually change your environment. And I'm a really big fan of outdoor walks because, as I said, you have all the 4 elements. I've added for you this week in the blog all about if you are feeling the imposter syndrome of being a tarot reader. And I kept it very short, 2.5-minute read, I'm sure. Some tips on there for you. You know, when people come along and you say, what if they say this and what if they say that? And they're thinking this, exactly like this card. Because what we do is we limit ourselves. I'm not good enough. What if this? What if somebody says, oh, are you a psychic? Oh, why do you charge? Isn't it a gift? Why are you asking me a question? You're the psychic. You should know. Go and read that blog because it's very helpful for you to actually feel that you are not a victim. I love what I'm doing, but I'm too caught up in my own restrictions of, oh, I think I better keep my castle behind and my day job to pay for it. And I am putting a load of obstacles in the way of my spiritual entrepreneurship as a tarot reader. Really, I think that comes from, you've called yourself passion, Sanju. I think that comes from your passion. What I would suggest is pop on the website and have a quick look at your natal chart. That is something. Finding out what components go where. We're not all just, you're not just a Sagittarius. There's so much more than that. You've probably got so much going on. You are your own biggest critic. It's probably because you are passionate and you care very deeply. And I've written quite a few articles and blogs that will be coming up. So keep an eye on the website. It's not just about this. The courses are there for you. Passionate Sachi's done the courses and she's moving along. It takes time. No one is an expert in everything to do with tarot. So, when that question comes, are you psychic? We're all psychic. But if you use that skill and you study and you're not just using your intuition, you're reading books, you're doing our courses, and you are using a system and you are saying, this is for me, I'm not. And the reason I say that is I've tried everything over the years. I've been a professional reader for 30 years and I've helped people that fear imposter syndrome and just said to them, be you. We do not want, don't think the courses are, I want you as a mini version of me. Absolutely not. I would never have hired anybody to be mini versions of me. They couldn't be. I've got my own personality, they've got theirs. We want that authentic you, but we want you to be able to say, you know what, I know this is what this card means, and I know how to read it because of the combination and because of the position. Great, you've looked at your natal chart. Do you know the three that are really important? The three that are really important are your sun, your moon, and your ascendant. Do you know what they are? If you do, pop it on here. I'll just carry on for a moment. As we change our thinking, we change our reality. And as I said, going outside and grounding yourself and replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones and creating a more favorable situation for yourself. No, the Eight of Swords can do all sorts of things. And of course, this mighty negative mindset, which makes us go, oh gosh, I can't, I'm trapped. I can't move on. I can't do this. And because of this and because of that, we've got to look at others helping us. We can't do everything on our own. Even hermits, they appeal to nature, to the divine, to the universe, to God, spirit, whatever we're looking for. And so once we speak to others, they might offer a completely different perspective, which is an alternative solution for you to explore. So it's being open to finding the answer rather than getting stuck in the problem. If you say, oh gosh, I'm my own worst critic, and I was too. I remember feeling completely intimidated by certain psychic fairs and events. And just because they're like that doesn't mean you have to be. And that's the difference. You're you and they're them. Sun, Sagi, Moon, Capricorn. Wow. Rising Taurus. Two lots of Earth there. And Taurus that's where you're grounded, your stability. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Quite simply, the moon, everybody, if you look at your moon, is when you feel emotionally content. Now, if you look at your sign, like Passionate Sagi is telling us, has this Capricorn, you're comfortable in a place where it's all about work. So Passionate Sagi, Capricorn is the 10th house. It's about our status and it's about our reputation. And Capricorn, what do they do? Quite simply, it's in Capricorn represents the fact that we see something and we go, let's say it's tarot. There's tarot here, put it up here, and I'm here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to climb that step by step to get there. Why? Because you're not doing it for yourself. You may think you are, but a moon in Capricorn is not. It's about the tarot. It's about the need to, your mood, your emotional side. Your emotions are what helps you feel comfortable or where you relax. So for you, it's nothing to do with you being your sun sign, where you are comfortable. If you've got Capricorn moon, it's about being able to say, it's about climbing that mountain, whatever that is, it's going for that goal. So in actual fact, your sun that's how you're going to go about it. And your sun, it's like, how do I climb that mountain? We'll say for tarot, and we're talking about that. How do I climb that mountain? The Capricorn moon is, I want to get there. Emotionally, it's the need in you. And you're comfortable there. You're comfortable not being at the top, going with the slow climb. You're comfortable. And what I mean is, it suits you, it's good. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's absolute everything that is done, step by step, gets there. And you might say, I'm not worried. I just know that's how far I could get. I could get there. I'm going to see if I can get there. And that is what your moon in Capricorn is. And your sun is Sagittarius, which is fire, and it's the 9th house. And so what you're looking at doing is achieving that through knowledge, through education, through different cultures. And cultures in tarot is attached to, you might like the school of thought as in Buddha, or you might look at Hinduism, you might look at all different faiths in the Sufi. Does this make sense to you? Yeah, absolutely. So how you're doing it is through the sun sign, your education. And probably what you're doing is you might be looking everywhere and getting confused. But that's what I'm saying. The cultures are, and where does it come from? We're all different. And that's what, when you find your little tribe, and I'm here to have a tiny little group of people that are saying, I just want to grow and climb that mountain, but I want to know that I'm good enough to actually making it to professional level. Creative sort is associated with being a victim. In our mentality, we're not, but we surrender our power to the external thing and become trapped and limited. And we think, oh, maybe it's not my fault, and I didn't mean to be here, I've come against my will. Someone can rescue me. But you know what? We usually take back our own power and go into a place of acceptance, don't we? And we do have choices. Even though we might not like them, we're not powerless. If you're not making headway with your tarot, for example, keep reading, add more, learn about numbers, learn about the colours, learn about the symbology. Look at the figure. Another thing I often do, and people are like, what? Really? If a card, all the cards I've done like this, it's up to you. Try and put yourself in the position of the figure's pose in the card. See what's your intuition telling you when you're stunned like that. What are you feeling? Boom, straight away. That's something where that card's really speaking to you. But educationally, if you know that, all of what I'm saying about your intuition, the psychic ability, the numerology, it'll all come flying in and you'll be like nobody else, because it will be absolutely a blueprint of you, completely authentic. That is when you are confident, because you're not measuring up to anything and anyone other than honoring what you know, and what you know your limit is. No, I don't do mediumship, or I do mediumship, whichever it is. Or no, I don't do numerology. Or no, I don't do astrology, or whatever it is. Or no, I don't consider myself actually to be intuitive. Whatever it is you want to say, you are allowed to say, I've got to grow, I've got to know more. And that is what the courses are about. So it's often much more clear-cut, the solution, when we actually come to making that very difficult decision. And that's when we're empowering ourselves. And the trouble is that we worry about either option, and that's what leads to the negative consequences. Remember, either option, going back to Two of Swords. So if we don't deal with that, we just remain stuck. So the card just says, just go for it. Trust yourself. If it was a career reading, the Eight of Swords indicates that you have a limited or restricted perspective of your career. And you need to catch yourself thinking outside of the box instead of inside of the box. Ask yourself, do you adhere to the outdated approaches because that's how it's always been done? A bit like me saying, oh, you know what, I'm comparing myself to that psychic medium at that fair, and she was this, and she so had that, and it was all natural, and I want to be like that. But you're not her. So don't restrict yourself. It's good to have somebody in mind. My imposter syndrome was saying, gosh, you've got a perfectly good career. Why are you doing this? This is your hobby. And you've always charged for it because it's my time. And it's not my time in the reading. Get that one straight. It is the time that you have spent gaining that knowledge. That's what your client's paying for. And so if you've done that well, they'll see it immediately. Immediately. So don't doubt yourself. Eight of Swords is all about imposter syndrome, being restricted. Think of it like that. You'll never forget it. I went through it. Still do. I have had those fears exactly like that. But perhaps the little Scorpio rising says, but it's about being able to have got that knowledge, dig for that knowledge. And by having that knowledge, I'm able to say, this needs to be shared. And here I come. If you want it, it's here. You don't have to go digging. I would have loved to have found it. You see what I mean about astrology? How much it can help you. If you know what's making you tick, and you know those traits, and it starts to make sense. When you see a card and you've got Temperance and it's Sagittarius, about mixing and blending and strengthening what you've got. Think of the Temperance card, which is Sagittarius, says those points of, I've got the tarot. Now I'm getting the astrology and I'm learning. I'm combining that and I'm creating something bigger. So you really are like Sagittarius, says him, because it's all about the learning. If we were looking at the Eight of Swords as a personality, the Eight of Swords, a personality, likes to portray themselves as a victim, trapped, restricted by lots of reasons that they presume is completely out of their control. But you say, oh, I'm not very good at what I'm doing. If you're learning, you're better than you were this morning or yesterday or last week if you are doing the work. You see what I'm saying? That's how it is. It's forgetting about the fact that, if we've got a personality type at the Eight of Swords, that person is going to struggle to see the way out of a problem or a problematic situation. And they avoid taking responsibility or accountability. If you take accountability, you're back in control. And that's what they don't do. So they're reluctant to listen to other people and to the advice. They prefer to project a sense of powerlessness and an inability to change the current situation. So that's what an Eight of Swords sort of character looked like. It could be very frustrating for those who are much more action-orientated, especially if you are somebody that takes personal accountability for your life. It can be incredibly hard to be around. Last one, relationships and love with this card, just on its own. If the Eight of Swords comes up, it's probably telling you that you're confining yourself to a certain type of partner or relationship. So you need to actually not niche down so much and maybe reset at least, and don't put yourself in a corner. Oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Are you looking at unrealistic expectations? You need to set yourself up for failure because it's what you think you want instead of actually, it'd be really nice to actually be with somebody who's like-minded that I'm comfortable with. It's one of those things. Yeah. Oh, really? This is a situation at your workplace. Ah, that must be pretty hard. Yeah. And, if you are somebody that's not like that and you go, it is what it is, but I'm not trapped and this is what I'm doing about it. And it can be very difficult to be in a workplace where you've got that victim mentality around in that persona of a person. They can also be, I don't know, it can affect you as in you can see it in everything that they do. And you think, oh, gosh, I can't escape from this. It's really difficult to be around that kind of character. Spiritually speaking, if this comes up, if it comes up in the spiritual part of your reading, as in the position of the spiritual self, it can suggest that you're trapped in the way you're thinking, particularly regarding your spiritual beliefs. When we choose to just see what we want to see, we gain perspective that's completely impartial advice coming from your subconscious. And that's how attack reading works. If somebody's asking about our well-being and you've got the Ace of Swords and they like to say health, and you know what we say, sorry, can't look at health for you, but I can look at your well-being. So if the Ace of Swords comes up in such a question, it points towards the mind and the body connection. So it's probably about whether or not your thoughts and expectations are having an impact upon your physical health. Because if you're filled with anxiety and you're feeling victimized or you feel like you're limited or restricted, it's going to play havoc, isn't it, with your physical health? So taking the stress down and the negative patterns down and reprogramming yourself for more of a positive impact, there's all sorts of therapy, isn't there, where I say to people, it's about looking at things from a different angle in your thinking. So, it's important that we've got a few ideas about what this card could be telling us just as a single card. So it's a difficult one. It's one of those cards where it's got to get the skeletons out of the closet. We need to do a good old spring clean and have a little bit of a freshen up and not to let go of old patterns of behavior. And yes, we've got to think of it in the positive side. Thank you so much. There's a playlist there. There's a podcast there. There's a lesson there. There's a tutorial there. Caught it when you want. But I can't teach you how to be a real adjuster on my YouTube channel. I can only give you the support here. Thank you very much indeed. I very much appreciate it. And lovely to have you along. But it's really, I don't want anyone to feel restricted because I know what it's like. I don't know how crippling it can be. And it's also important that there are situations where it's just not the right time. And we have to accept that despite, so I'm restricting myself. But maybe if you haven't got the time to study, you could be realistic about that. Or what you could do is actually just touch your cards and look at them and go, who do I know that's like that? But it's wonderful when you're able to share it. So much fun. Time for me to go with it. Thank you. Bye-bye.